On a Tuesday night, my phone lit up the way truth does. Sharp, merciless. An email from my mother, Brenda. It wasn't a call. It wasn't even a conversation. Just a few cold, brief lines.
We've had a wonderful offer and have decided to sell the Miller's Plate. As you're not an investor, this doesn't concern you.
A digital exile from my own family's legacy. Seconds later, the family group chat flashed. My sister, Chloe, had hearted the announcement. Betrayal, apparently, was a team sport.
I didn't cry. I didn't call them, begging for an explanation. Their words, "You're not an investor," were hanging in the air. And in that cold, digital silence, something in me finally clicked into place. Anger wasn't loud this time. It was clinical. I sat there, hand steady on the mouse. My apartment is a place of order. Everything labeled, everything color-coded. It's how I, a data analyst, make sense of a chaotic world. It's how I survived my family. And now, that same order was my weapon. I opened my laptop, but not to my email. I went to a secure drive, unlocked an encrypted folder named MP Contingency Fund. It was a file I'd kept for 5 years, ever since the first time I had to fix one of their messes. It was full of subfolders. Vendor invoices unpaid, property tax overdue, equipment leases. Inside were the ghosts of their failures, all paid for by me. Every receipt, every bank transfer, every tearful Sunday night call from my father, Mark, saying, "Your mother's just so stressed, Isla. The meat supplier is cutting us off. Can you help just this once?" I always did. I told myself I was protecting the legacy, the Miller's Plate. It was more than a diner. It was, according to my mother, our entire identity in that town. The history, the pride. But I was the one secretly paying for that pride. I was the silent investor in their version of family, and I'd just been told my shares were worthless. I looked at the email again. "As you're not an investor." "Okay," I whispered to the empty room. I opened a new file, a fresh spreadsheet. I titled it Audit 2024. My fingers moved like they already knew the path. Date, amount, reason, proof. One column at a time, I wasn't just entering data. I was reclaiming years of unpaid respect. I used to think love was endurance, that if I just kept patching the holes, covering the shortfalls, one day they'd turn around and see my value. Now I realized my value was my function. I wasn't a daughter. I was a contingency fund. I wasn't losing a family. I was collecting evidence. They had no idea what I'd kept. They had no idea what a real audit looked like. They were about to find out. My spreadsheet lit up. Each line item I entered was a memory turned into math. An emergency wire transfer to the diner's primary meat supplier. They were threatening to cut them off right before a holiday weekend. My mother, Brenda, had called me, her voice cracking with manufactured panic. "You're the only one who understands the pressure, Isla. You have to help." I did. The electric bills. 3 months overdue. I'd set up an automatic payment from my own account just to stop the final notice letters that sent my father, Mark, into a spiral of silent anxiety. He learned to survive by staying out of the blast radius. I learned to survive by making sure there wasn't one. Then I got to Chloe's section, my sister, the social media manager, the charming, vibrant face of the Miller's Plate. Her business expenses were a separate tab, $25,000 a year, every year, for marketing trips that looked suspiciously like beach resorts, client dinners that were always at the most expensive bars, content creation that was just her posing for selfies by the diner's famous neon sign. My mother always called her the golden child, and me the responsible one. It sounds like a compliment, but it's not. It's a job description. I was staring at a perfect textbook example of the scapegoat and golden child dynamic. It's a classic feature of a narcissistic family system. One child, the golden child, Chloe, is chosen to represent the family's idealized image. She can do no wrong. She is the trophy. The other child, the scapegoat, is chosen to carry all the family's problems. I was the fixer, the emotional janitor, the one responsible for maintaining the illusion that my sister was golden and my parents were successful. My entire life, I had been cleaning up their chaos. Every dollar I'd sent wasn't a gift. It was a transaction. I was paying them to let me exist in their orbit, hoping that if I just kept giving, kept fixing, kept enduring, they'd eventually see I was worth keeping. I looked at the total at the bottom of the spreadsheet, the numbers climbing with every entry. I wasn't protecting a legacy. I was funding an illusion, and the bill for that illusion had finally come due. By morning, my phone was a museum of missed opportunities. Theirs, not mine. The first message wasn't from my mother. It was from Chloe. I read the notification preview. "You're overreacting." I opened it. The full text was a masterclass in gaslighting. "You're overreacting. Mom didn't mean it that way. You're making this into a huge deal when it's not. You're ruining the sale. Can we just talk?" Talk, as if the talk wasn't the word they used for lecture. I read it twice, searching for a single word of apology. There was nothing, just control wrapped in concern. I deleted it and went back to my spreadsheet. At 9 a.m., my mother finally sent her official summons. No greeting, no, "I'm sorry you feel that way." Just, "Isla, we need to talk about what you've done. You've created a mess with the suppliers. Call us immediately." Not a word about the email. No mention of the exile. Just a demand that I resume my role as the fixer, the family's chief financial officer and emotional janitor. For the first time, I saw it with the clarity of a balance sheet. The legacy I thought I was saving had never wanted saving. It wanted a secretary. It wanted a subscription, and I had just canceled my membership. I typed back a single, cold line. "I'm busy reconciling accounts. You should do the same." I hit send. The phone rang instantly. I let it buzz, a frantic vibration on the polished surface of my desk, until it went silent. By noon, the panic started to spread. A text from my father, Mark, the enabler, the professional bystander. "Isla, can you please explain what's going on? Your mother's losing it. The main vendor just called the house." Another from Chloe, her tone changing from faux concern to raw anger. "Why are you doing this? You're ruining everything." Ruining everything, as if my silence was the crime, not their betrayal. As if the structural integrity of their lives depended entirely on my willingness to be their floor joist. By 3 p.m., they'd tried every tactic: anger, pleading, guilt. Then came the public escalation. My mother, Brenda, posted a vague update on Facebook. The classic move. It's a sad day when you realize some people forget who raised them. Loyalty and family are supposed to mean something. Pride truly does come before the fall. It got 24 likes, mostly from distant relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years, but who loved the idea of family legacy. I didn't respond. I just took a screenshot. That was the moment the scales tipped. Not just in the accounts, but in me. They weren't shocked by what they'd done. They were shocked I had finally stopped playing along. The spreadsheet was one thing, my private accounting, my proof. But my mother's Facebook post, that was something else. That was a public declaration of war. She wasn't just trying to control me. She was trying to poison the well, to paint me as the villain before I could even speak. I realized this was no longer a family drama I could solve with a spreadsheet. They had created a mess, and I was done cleaning it up. It was time to bring in a professional. I called Maya. She'd been a quiet, intense friend in college, the only person who understood my obsession with order. Now, she was a forensic accountant and a lawyer, a shark who specialized in exactly this, messy family businesses and hidden money. She picked up on the second ring. "Isla, it's been a while." "Maya," I said, my voice flat, clinical. "I need to hire you, not as a friend, as a client. I need you to audit the Miller's plate." There was a pause, but not of surprise, of analysis. "Okay," she said, "send me everything you have. And Isla, don't talk to them. Don't answer a single text. From this moment on, I am the mess." I sent her the encrypted folder, my MP contingency fund, the 5 years of bank statements, the bounced checks, the panicked emails from my father, Chloe's expense reports, my entire one-sided investment. She called back just 90 minutes later. The friendly warmth was gone. Her voice was sharp, focused, lethal. "Isla, I've done a preliminary pass on these books." And, she said, "the unpaid vendor invoices are the least of your problems. The money you've poured in, that's just the surface. These numbers don't add up. There's a massive debt here, a huge liability that you haven't mentioned in any of your files." I gripped the counter. "What debt? I listed everything, every dollar I paid." "No," Maya said, and I could hear her clicking a keyboard. "Not what you paid, Isla, what they borrowed. I'm looking at a commercial loan agreement that's in default, and it's the real reason they're selling." The line was silent for a moment, just the faint sound of Maya breathing. I thought I knew what she was going to say, that they'd hidden assets, that they'd been skimming from the register. The reality was so much worse. 2 years ago, Maya said, her voice now completely stripped of any friendship, a business loan was taken out against the diner's assets, $75,000. I felt my stomach tighten, but I kept my voice steady. "Okay, so they're in debt." "No, Isla, listen to me," she said, her tone sharp. "They are in default. The bank was set to seize the property in 30 days. That's why they're selling. That's the wonderful offer your mother mentioned. It's a foreclosure sale, and they're trying to get out before the bank takes it all." I was processing this, my mind racing through my spreadsheets. $75,000? Where had that gone? It wasn't in the new equipment. It wasn't in the payroll. "But Maya," I said, "a loan that large, I'm technically still a partner on the original incorporation, even if they ignore it. They would have needed my signature." The silence on the other end of the line was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. "Maya?" "Isla," she said, "that's the problem. They have your signature. I'm looking at a scan of the personal guarantee for the full $75,000. It's right here, next to your mother's and father's. Your name, clear as day." I rubbed my eyes, trying to summon regret, but there was only a cold, sharp clarity. I never signed that. "I know," Maya said. "The signature is good, very good, but it's not yours. This isn't a family dispute anymore, Isla. This is bank fraud. This is a crime." That was the moment the floor fell out. It wasn't just exploitation. It wasn't just ingratitude. It was criminal. They hadn't just used me. They had impersonated me to fund their sinking ship, and they had left me legally bound to the anchor. "There's more," Maya said, and I braced myself. I subpoenaed the bank's records, including the internal security footage from the date the loan was signed. "And? Your father wasn't there. It was just Brenda and Chloe." My breath caught. "Chloe, of course." "They sat at the loan officer's desk for almost an hour," Maya continued, her voice a monotone, just facts. "And when it was time to sign the guarantee, the camera angle is perfect. Your mother slid the papers across the desk, and Chloe picked up the pen. I pictured it. My sister, the golden child, her handwriting always so similar to mine, practicing my name, forging my future. My mother, Brenda, watching with approval. My compassion had been a luxury they'd overdrafted for years. This was the kill shot. They didn't just cut me out, I said, the words tasting like ash. They tied me to the debt before they left. Exactly, Maya said. They weren't just selling the diner, Isla. They were selling you out. Things moved faster than I could have imagined. Maya was lethal. With the forged signature and the security footage, she filed an emergency injunction. The wonderful offer evaporated. The sale was frozen pending a fraud investigation. That night, my apartment buzzer screamed. Not a polite press, but a frantic, sustained buzz. I didn't need to look at the camera to know. I went to the door, looked through the peephole. My mother, Brenda, her face red and swollen, eyes wide with a panic I had never seen. My father, Mark, stood behind her, looking pale and shrunken, a ghost in her storm. "Isla!" my mother yelled through the door, her voice cracking. "Isla, open this door! You have to stop this! They're freezing everything! Do you hear me? You are destroying this family!" I took a breath. I opened the door, just a few inches, the security chain still in place. It was all the space I would ever give them again. They stared at me, shocked by the coldness in my eyes. The old Isla, the fixer, the scapegoat, was gone. The person standing in front of them was an analyst who had just balanced the books. "Please," my mother whispered, her tone shifting instantly to begging, the last tool in her box. "Isla, please. We're losing everything. We'll lose the diner. Think about your sister. Do this for Chloe." "For Chloe," I repeated. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. The one who held the pen. "She's still your sister," my mother sobbed. I looked at her, then at my father, who wouldn't meet my eyes. I had a single sheet of paper waiting on the small table by my door. I picked it up, folded it, and pushed it through the gap. "What is this?" Brenda asked, her hands trembling as she took it. "That," I said, my voice as flat and final as a closed ledger, "is the legal notice from Maya. The $75,000 debt that Chloe forged my name on, it makes me the primary creditor. Since I'm liable for the debt, I also have first claim to the assets to cover it. You're not losing the diner, Mom. I'm seizing it." Her face drained of all color. "You wouldn't." "I already did," I said. I stared at her, waiting for her to find the version of me that used to fix this. The daughter who would absorb the chaos, pay the bill, and swallow the pain. That version was gone. That account was closed. "Goodbye, Mom." I closed the door, sliding the deadbolt into place. I didn't watch them leave. I just stood in the quiet, breathing in the end of an era. The diner was sold at a court-ordered auction. The legacy was liquidated. The proceeds were just enough to cover the $75,000 fraudulent loan, the outstanding vendor bills, and Maya's fees. My family, the name that was once so proud on the diner sign, was left with nothing. Maya asked if I wanted to press criminal charges for the fraud. I told her no. I didn't need revenge. I just needed the books to be balanced. That night, for the first time, I sat in my apartment and the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt clear. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Audit 2024 spreadsheet. All the numbers, all the dates, all the pain quantified in rows and columns. I stared at the final, perfect zero at the bottom of the balance sheet for a long time. Then, I moved my cursor. MP Contingency Fund. I right-clicked, and I hit delete. Watching it vanish didn't feel like loss. It felt like a release. We're taught that blood is a bond that can't be broken, that family is a debt that you pay forever, no matter the cost. But sometimes, cutting those ties isn't an act of cruelty. It's not a failure. It's the last, most courageous act of self-preservation. It's finally closing a ledger that should have been balanced years ago. It's choosing to find yourself, even when it means leaving the blood that defined you behind. My mornings were mine again. No emergency calls, no spreadsheets, just the steady, quiet hum of a life that finally belonged to me.